Welcome back to Goth Fragrance Dialogues, the place where scent and story meet. I am Josh, your Goth Fragrance bestie, and joining me is also Josh from Paraphrase Perfume. Uh, Paraphrase is an indie fragrance brand based in Canada. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited to chat.
Yeah, and I know this is coming out later on, but today was also the launch of your newest brand, perfume, which I just
Yeah,
forgot the name of. Tell us about that.
fruit foods. Yeah.
So, congratulations. You had been mentioning in your social media posts playing around with passion fruit for a while, so it's really cool to
Mhm.
get your new release.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, excited to have it out. It definitely took longer than expected. I think those things always do, but so yeah, have been playing around with the note for a little while and just getting it to play well with everything else that I wanted to be in the fragrance was tricky, but yeah, glad to be here.
Awesome. Thank you. So, to start us off, the same thing I ask everyone.
Hmm.
What is your first memory tied to scent?
Um, I think it's either like huffing the exhaust pipe of my dad's like 94 Dodge Tacoma or Dakota, just being like, ooh, gasoline fumes smell delightful. Or I think, but probably more accurately, my mom has had a hard time smelling for my whole life, and she, like when I was very very young, pointed out that lilacs were her favorite scent. So it just like gave me an impression when I was very young that scent is important, and just like have a love for lilacs now.
That's awesome. So, how did your relationship with scent evolve into creating a perfume brand?
Yeah, I feel like I sort of fell in kind of like backwards a bit because I didn't start a perfume brand from kind of a deep love of the perfume industry, or as a real like frag head kind of perfume consumer. I was in school for design, and in that, thinking a lot about the senses, thinking a lot about like how the products that we bring in our life kind of tell stories about who we are and who we want to be in the world. um, just started thinking a lot about scent more so, and the place that it has in our life, and then through that was like, how are scented products made, and started looking into formulation, and fell in love with the formulation first. Like, Canada doesn't, especially where I am, doesn't have a crazy retail scene for perfume, especially 10 years ago. So I was more just exposed to the bigger kind of designer brands. So it was really through the act of starting to be curious about how scent is made that I um, fell in love with perfume itself, and wanted to turn it into a real brand.
Interesting. So, from uh, kind of the design school aspect, moving through into launching a brand and then ultimately having to do a major rebrand into
Mhm.
Paraphrase. Can you talk to us a little bit about how that creative project has evolved and kind of your thought and practice now at Paraphrase?
Yeah, I think it's always been like it's always felt very personal. The brand it feels like kind of an extension of myself, and it started really as, I was in school for design and expecting that I would be kind of getting out and using creativity as a kind of main part of my output in the world, like kind of how I'm getting paid as a designer. I wanted to almost create a little sandbox for myself where it's like scent design is very, very different than doing like industrial design or graphic design. Um, just to have a little place where I could kind of play, and it's outside of the constraints of having a kind of day job. Just a nice way to like hopefully not get burnt out on creativity itself. Um, so that was really what the whole brand was started as, was kind of just an exercise in giving me space to play around with things and learn things kind of on my own with my own briefs. Yeah, it's really, since it's become more and more of a real project in the world, it's like, I think as it's grown and people have also found that they enjoy the scents and have kind of fans in the world, like it feels like I'm sharing it a little bit more with people. So it feels now more like it's for me, but it is also kind of for everyone who's taken part in Libertine and now Paraphrase. So
Excellent. And then I think a lot of people had the question. So, as much as you are willing to and can talk about it, what was the impetus for shifting from Libertine to Paraphrase? And do you think it was Obviously, it was necessitated, but do you think this is opening a lot more avenues and a new chapter for you?
Yeah, absolutely a new chapter. I think, I mean, it was, yeah, like I said, started while I was in school for design. It wasn't really, I had no kind of grand ambitions. There was no kind of like 5-year plan of what I wanted it to be. It was really started for what I needed then. So it was the need to change was because I didn't do quite enough due diligence in ensuring I could like um, trademark the name globally, which is a huge exercise. And so I was able to get the trademark in Canada, but in the States I was not. It's just a busier marketplace. So thought it would be fine for a while, and then realizing like as this project had grown that I would need to take it a bit more seriously, kind of from a legal side. So that was the impetus. But I'd been running the brand as a libertine for I think 9 years at the time where the change actually took place. So it started. I felt like maybe a totally different person by the time the change came in from when I started the brand. So libertine very very fit what I was feeling and wanted to express while I was in school 9 years prior. But I think Paraphrase and the change has been a really beautiful opportunity for me to explore different parts of myself. Libertine is a very kind of rebellious word and rebellious to its core. And I think Paraphrase feels softer. And that is what I feel like in my life right now. So
I I, I really appreciate that. And that flows really well into my next question, which was the brand kind of emphasizes the importance of slowing down.
mm.
Um, how does that philosophy influence your process in terms of creative scent conception to the final bottle to the branding?
Yeah, I think it's the kind of like the slowness, the mindfulness, the just like being present with the moment as much as possible has been it's been something that I've learned because of perfume and making perfume and just the whole exercise of trying to create scents. Just like scent is such on the maybe hierarchy of importance of kind of how we perceive the world. It's usually tends to be kind of a bit lower. So I think people are maybe a bit less in tune with scent and kind of the subtleties that it can have. So I found just in my own practice, like I really needed to slow down to be able to fully grasp kind of the texture. Like it's easy just to smell something and think like citrus, great. But you really have to slow down to notice all the nuance. So it was almost kind of a lesson I've begrudgingly taken on through the years. And as it's become more apparent that it is important for my own practice, it's something that I guess I want to share with the world. It's part of how these scents came to be, and it's important, has been really noticeable for me. So it's seeped into the brand for sure.
I think expanding on that a little bit, you mentioned texture. And I think that's really interesting because I often struggle to define olfactory texture, but it's definitely something I find, especially with like orris as an ingredient.
Okay.
I can almost feel it in a scent more than I can actually smell it. Can you talk a little bit more about olfactory texture? I find it just such an interesting blend of senses, but I know what you're talking about. I just don't know how to describe it.
Totally. I mean, I think we just culturally, especially in the West, I know other cultures have way more language for scent, but I think we are really, really lacking in like specific language based on scent. So you really have to draw in kind of the other senses. Like you really have to find any, like I've found it very useful to just try to find any reference point I can and when I'm smelling a new material or smelling a perfume. So a lot of the times I find it easier to both think kind of what is this not, like is it warm, is it cool. So I think temperature is a very useful kind of other descriptor that we'd take from a different sense but can totally be applied to scent. And then texture, like there's all sorts of things, the kind of woody ambers that just feel sort of scratchy and dry, maybe feel like lightly sandpapery or something along those lines. And then orris, has like can have a very papery kind of texture, and it's not, like I don't know how I would describe it besides just, you kind of feel it, and you feel it in, like, I don't even know where you're sensing these scratchinesses or this whatever, but yeah, all sorts of things, like what does the shape of the material feel like as you're smelling it? Some things tend to feel like a bit more round and soft, and other things just have this kind of really, really powerful push that almost gives an impression, like if you just imagining a shape in your mind, like each material can kind of have that for you. But I think the more time you spend thinking in those ways, the easier it is to kind of at least assign those attributes to different scents or different materials.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. And it goes back to like the language test where they made up words,
Mm,
boba and kiki, and then they
totally.
asked people which of these words is round, which of these is sharp. And we as humans innately have an association, even though logically there isn't one. The same way
Totally.
between a scent and a texture, technically there's no tether, but we make those
Yeah.
connections.
I think, synesthesia gets brought up a lot with perfume and perfumers, and it's got this kind of like sexy mystique of, oh, this person is able to kind of create these strange associations. But I know there are people out there who have a very strong sense of that, and it is something they live with. But I think, like, at its core, people are much more capable of doing that kind of creative exercise of being like, does this word seem sharp and pointy, or does this smell seem sharp and pointy? Is this a kiki scent or a boba scent? Yeah, I think people give themselves, kind of in the general public, less credit for how, if they sit down, slow down, how they can create these connections as well.
I love that. Slow down and make the connections.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talking about ingredients and making these connections, Paraphrase are all of your fragrances are vegan and cruelty-free, very grounded in the sustainability. How do those values shape the choices you make in sourcing ingredients and information?
Yeah, I mean, perfume is such a, there's so many ingredients that can and do go into fragrances. The kind of, fragrance options are vast. I think for perfume, for me, honestly, like, perfume is, so much perfume is vegan, and it's not a thing that is talked about very much. Mostly, like, all the designer stuff, the animalics that are used, have been used in perfumery, are just also kind of expensive. So for even that reason, they're not really used. But on kind of a bigger scale, very frequently. I think it's, there's so much out there talking about, I don't know, I guess, about, like, kind of ingredients and their safety, and what is good and bad for people. And I think I just wanted to say that we're vegan because when I started talking to, mostly at markets in person, that people were almost kind of surprised in a way. Like, they were very, like, vegans, people who want to just avoid certain types of materials, were super excited. And it's like, a lot of these scents just happen to be vegan. Making that call, it has informed a little bit. There are a few animalic materials that I think are, like, beeswax absolute, for example, is beautiful, and bee-based products are not vegan, but it's kind of I think there's gradations to how much harm it's causing. But I would love to use it, but it's an easy call not to, if it's for those few handfuls of materials that it makes people excited to use the product and know that they can use it with confidence. It's easy for me.
Awesome. So, shifting a little bit towards your creative process and inspirations, each of your fragrances tend to have a kind of a mood, almost a vibe. They're not necessarily, we talked a lot about how some perfumes are very, very literal, like a mango iced tea. And then some are very thematic and ethereal, like Sid Botanica does quite a lot of, like, dreamy escape. Yours is somewhere almost in the middle of this, like a place and time that might trigger a memory.
Sure.
How do you conceptualize a new scent from kind of the inspiration to the actual olfactory reality that you end up with?
Yeah, it is interesting because it sometimes can be a bit different, but I think it all ends up, there's a similarity, like a kind of maybe a series of decisions in the process that make it, because like in the past I've started from materials where I've just really loved a material I've brought in or a couple things and I wanted to really highlight that, and then other times it's purely a landscape in mind, just like really wanting to honor a place or create the kind of a little vignette I have in my head of a place. But I think that's all where it kind of ends up, is that I'm usually just have this really strong sense of landscape in my mind that I want to evoke, kind of whether real or imagined. So it feels, and none of them are very, I guess, like specific in terms of like, this is not like Monaco 1957, like the meeting of these people. It's very almost more like, I guess, creating a set or a vignette or like little scene, and just letting the materials kind of tell that story.
Yeah, I think the word you used that I caught there was landscape. Because your lineup includes things like grasslands, softwoods, troubled spirits. So what are the stories that you're bringing into these landscapes as you make them?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, and I think this may be why sometimes there is some space to allow people to have their own kind of especially with grasslands, I find, or softwoods, where it's very literally kind of landscape, natural environment based. That I do find a lot of the times when I'm imagining things, there's not actually that much in the way of people in mind. So this isn't like a scene where something is happening. I think there's also a lot of perfumers that I think are really great at maybe capturing emotion. So there's a real human dynamic in their work, in the themes that they're exploring. And for me, it's like much more devoid of people. It's more just about kind of setting this stage and then letting people, wear the perfumes or kind of imagine those similar landscapes in their head and apply it to their own life. So I think in that way that I allow some space for people to kind of look back into their own memory bank and think of what they, when they've been in kind of like a picturesque grassy field or walking through the woods.
Perfumes from misanthropes.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah. Yeah.
Teasing, but the customer response and kind of the perfume community has been quite heartfelt and personal. Like you said, people do make those connections to those landscapes within their own emotions and memories. Has that audience feedback kind of shaped your creative vision over time?
I mean, yeah, I've definitely entrusted, brought in as much kind of feedback from people. I think, just going through design school, critique is kind of an element of that. So I think recognizing that I'm making this for people outside of myself as well, trying to bring people in and read reviews and chatting with people, just trying to pull a general sense of what people are loving. And yeah, especially going through the rebrand process, I've been very mindful of kind of some of the feedback I'd received over the years and trying to make things that everyone loves as much as possible. For the creative scent based thing, for the creative, like the directions of the scents, it is pretty like more what's in my mind. I think there is probably some subconscious leading from just ideas that other people have had and planting of ideas. But I do feel like when I'm in the space of creating a fragrance, like it feels very authentically me. And then a lot of the marketing does tend to include me in a pretty casual kind of way. So I'm glad that like I don't have to, it doesn't have to be incredibly showy, that it can be really authentic and personal. And that seems to be what people are kind of connecting with.
Absolutely. Authenticity, I think, is important in any creative endeavor.
Yeah.
But when you can have that authenticity in your branding, it does seem to resonate with people very well. Speaking on authenticity, the perfume industry is full of trends, particularly brands that want to try to chase those trends. That does not seem to be the story for Paraphrase. So how do you kind of stay rooted in your own creative path while being connected to this kind of onslaught of trend?
Yeah, I mean, like I would say half jokingly that probably the main reason is because I'm like not that great at business. I think if I could create some sort of like development machine that could whip things up really quickly, and had a factory producing these things and whatnot, I'd be a little better at chasing trends and kind of cashing in on things that people are wanting to smell like in this moment. But everything is really pretty much done by hand by me and a very small team of kind of some part-time folks. So there's only so much I can do. It takes me a long time to create a fragrance to feel happy with it. So by the time, cherry's hot for the summer, it's like by the time I have anything decent, it feels like it's well past anyway. So I could show up late to every trend or just kind of do what I am excited about in that moment, and hope that it resonates with the right people anyway.
Yeah, so in like 2 to 3 years, we'll get a matcha fragrance out of
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Pistachio is on the way.
Yeah. That's actually a good chance to say, kind of looking forward, as you've transitioned into Paraphrase, and that's been a big focus for you this year. We just talked a little bit that you introduced Fruit Thieves today, which is in August. I know it's coming out a little bit later. What are some other new directions and expansions that you imagine for the brand in the future?
Yeah, I mean, the kind of business building side of it is so interesting and fun. But like, I do feel we're in a pretty small, my background is our studio space. We're in a pretty small space. So I almost feel like that in a sense has limited some things that I would love to do, because I just don't have space to store new things. I would love to put out a line of candles. I personally love kind of body oils and as sort of like the just ritual aspect of beauty in small ways. And I think like a small collection of scented oils would be very, very cool. I don't have a ton of space to store any of that finished product or even really produce it where I'm at now. So those are still like ideas percolating. And then, yeah, Fruit Thieves was a cool experience in that it really felt very fitting for kind of putting together after a rebrand, and just the creative process felt like maybe I like shed a bit of habits in how I would create scents. And I think it smells a little bit different than anything I've done. Some of the new stuff that I've got a couple things that are sort of halfway in development now that just feeling really refreshed and kind of on a new path, or new possibilities are there. So excited to work on just new scents with maybe a bit of less baggage from Libertine.
Awesome. That's good to hear. And you'd mentioned Fruit Thieves. You kind of were centered in on the passion fruit note, and you wanted to work with that material. I know you said they're kind of like half finished or anything, but is there anything upcoming that you're excited to be working with, material or note wise?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that is the most close to completion, the other thing, was looking at, so it's vanilla, and I was just like, vanilla has such a interesting rap, both good and bad, for all sorts of reasons. But I was kind of just really captured by the idea of like, what was it like the sort of like first vanilla brought to, say, like medieval Europe, like places that have not experienced this thing that has become so ubiquitous. What were those like first touch points like with this, what is like really a beautiful and crazy material, this like orchid pod. So trying to take it's like a little bit of a medieval vanilla that I'm kind of working on, very like bready and spiced in a strange way. That's the inspiration and the vibe so far.
I really like the sound of it. I mean, a medieval take on anything is gonna get me immediately interested.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I just want to buy chainmail is really the reason.
I'm here for it. I would love to see what that commercial looks like.
Yeah, exactly. Cool.
Yeah. So also thinking about kind of your journey thus far, design school into a brand, having to do a complete rebrand.
Yeah.
As you said, slowing down a little bit. What advice would you give to either aspiring perfumers or people that are in the creative fields that want to make something that has that deep personal meaning for them?
Yeah, that is a great question. I think I don't know. I think I really, in some ways, was very assisted by lucky timing with perfume, in that I kind of started as things were really on an upswing, but it hadn't got too busy yet. There's a ton of brands launching. I think it's very exciting that there are so many kind of different points of view coming into the fragrance space. But I think maybe I attribute a lot of the initial inertia to the fact that it was a little bit less crowded. And I think perhaps that is a way of giving yourself, even if it was in the fragrance space or it's in something, I think finding a path that maybe is like a bit less crowded to start, where there is interest, but you're not kind of scrapping against thousands and thousands of other kind of like-minded people trying to get their story out. I know it definitely helped me to have people seeking for something, and there was still just like a little bit of room. So not that people shouldn't get into perfume, but I think maybe like making sure you have a really an interesting angle, or that your story is front and center in a way that is defining first, so you can get that attention.
Excellent. And then thinking about, you mentioned you're in Canada. You're in not even one of like the really metro
Yeah.
areas of Canada. It's a much smaller community for fragrance there. I can think of only a handful of brands. How do you interact with them, if you do? And kind of what does the support look like amongst the Canadian perfumers?
Yeah, I mean it is quite scant, the scene here. So I mean there's I guess, in the way that we all sort of communicate digitally, there's a bit of just trying to check in with people. And honestly, it's like reaching out to perfumers in the States as well, kind of finding people with similar ethos, and or businesses that feel kind of like we're going through similar things. I've had a ton of great conversations just reaching out through Instagram and whatnot. Yeah, being in a smaller, pretty remote city, compared to a lot of even just the States, it's tricky. It feels a bit isolating. So I think it's just like taking moments where you can to reach out to people. And then, I mean, yeah, we did Scent Week, the Institute of Art and Olfaction's Scent Week in LA. And that was really inspiring to see how deep the community does run worldwide. So just knowing that it's out there, and not being afraid to reach out to people, even if they're in, other countries across the world.
All right, excellent. Well, again, congrats on Fruit Thieves. We're
Thank you.
excited to hear as you come into, medieval vanilla and anything
Yeah.
else that you're working on. Can you let the folks that are listening and watching know where to find you online, and if you're in any boutiques in person?
Yeah, absolutely. So paraphraseperfume.com would be where to find us online. And then I believe it's paraphrase.perfume on Instagram for the handles. The rebrand was killer.
Yeah,
And then yeah, we have a map on our website of all of our retailers in the States, especially right now. Ministry of Scent has been a great supporter, and excited to be working with them to bring the line, and including now Fruit Thieves, to the world.
excellent. Well, thank you for your time today.
Yeah, thank you so much.